This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. When lockdown began, the street outside my house in East London was silent, save for the sound of some sparrows and a parakeet colony that bizarrely turned up in the trees. Now, though, as you can hear, there's a fairly constant stream of cars. You don't have to go far to see how this city, like others around the country, is moving again. And that's before people get back to work. Some people will be doing that very soon. Here's the thing though. How? Is public transport safe? Should everyone buy a bike? Can we all walk a mile, as the government's now suggesting? Or will we see more cars packing onto roads? And where are they going to park? Our editorial column says a new world needs new rules, and no one's taking responsibility for writing them.
The tube is getting busier. Travel crept up 5% on Monday, and it's expected to keep going up as more people start going back to work. Almost everyone will be wearing face masks. In some countries, passengers are being given masks to use. The British approach is to muddle through, and that's a worry for people who have to travel and want to know it is safe. There's a big push to create more space for cycling and walking. That's welcome. But a crowded cycle lane can have its own challenges with social distancing. A lot of people will try to drive. It is, after all, what the Prime Minister told them to do in his broadcast on Sunday night. That might be fine in some places. In central London, it is terrible advice. There's another worry too. Transport for London is running out of cash because almost no one is buying tickets. It's after a bailout deal, and the bill could hit £7 billion. The last thing we need as our city struggles to recover is an implosion of our transport network. The mayor will blame ministers, but it is up to him to show he's got a grip on keeping our city moving, too.
Our associate editor, Julian Glover, joins me now. Julian, a lot of people are meant to be going back to work. How are they going to do it?
So the government said we've got to start getting back to work. If we can't work from home, we need to travel to work. Lots of people doing that. And it's really a fundamental problem of physics, about space. There isn't room to fit all the people who'll need to move in the system we've got to move them. Everybody who's used the tube knows how crowded it gets when it's full. Well, even if the tube is a lot less busy, and it's down 94% at the moment, even with hardly any passengers, there isn't room for social distancing. You might be able to get in a carriage and find 2 metres between somebody else. Get off at a station on those narrow tube platforms, you almost certainly won't. So physically, it's really hard to manage, and we need some basic rules. And it's been a struggle to get them out of the government. It's been a struggle to get an agreement with the mayor for Transport for London as to what those rules are. We've got some of them today, and they say you need to have a face covering if you can in a confined space. Some countries are giving passengers face masks. Here, rather eccentric British thing, the government's told us to cut up what it says is an old T-shirt, so make sure you don't use your new top-of-the-range Paul Smith to keep yourself safe, but something a bit more basic from the back of the cupboard and get sewing. So we're going to have to do that, and even then the tube's going to be busy, but of course it already is, and it's got to keep running. They're going to step up services from next Monday, so there'll be more trains, more buses as well on the streets. National Railway's going back to a Saturday service, so that's pretty frequent on a lot of routes. But there's a really big problem, and that's that lots of people are going to drive. And in London, that's tough. The Prime Minister said people should drive in his statement on Sunday night. It's not easy if you work on a building site in central London to drive into work and park your car. So we've got a big difficulty coming in London.
Now, even I've been looking at possibly getting a bike, and I am too fat to get a bike, Julian. I have been looking at some of those e-cycles, which seem quite tempting. I might get one of those. But can bicycles save the world?
Cycling's great. I've got an e-bike as well, and it's really good. I recommend them, but I wouldn't want to leave it chained up in a street in London when I'm not on it, because they're pretty expensive and the battery will get nicked or the bike will get nicked. So e-bikes maybe not so good for central London. But no, the challenge with cycling is even if everybody who wants to go to work now got on a bike, there wouldn't be room to park them, to use them. They're certainly more efficient than a car in using space on the roads, but not more efficient than a tube train. A Central Line train can carry over 1,000 people crammed in. You know what it's like at peak hour, crammed in. Those old days when we used to go to work on trains before March. Imagine every 2 minutes, 1,000 people getting on a bike from different stations and trying to cycle all over London, it isn't really going to be practical to carry loads of people. What cycling and walking is great at is short distance journeys that people might have done by car or might have done by bus. About a third of the car journeys in London, they measure it at less than 2 kilometres. You can walk 2 kilometres. Most people can walk 2 kilometres in just a few minutes. It's not a long journey. So you can stop all sorts of things happening and switch it to bike and car. Not many people are going to cycle in from, imagine you live in Enfield and you've got to go into central London. It's quite a journey by bike. You're not going to do it every day. It's not the answer to everything, but it might help ease the strain. And that's why they're widening the lanes at the moment, putting cones down the streets, trying to stop cars eating up all the road and trying to get people moving around safely. But the honest truth is that if you live in a city of 9 million people, if you stretched everybody out and 2 metres apart, you'd actually take up, I think I calculated, about 10 times the surface area just of the City of London to do it. It's physically not going to be possible to have social distancing everywhere. And you've got to remember, in Paris, the rules are the metro has to carry half the number of people, and it's a metre distance. Here it's 2 metres. Never quite clear where any of these guidelines come from. We're all in the dark. The government's doing its best. The mayor's doing his best. But we're going to have a few more people in the system than perhaps the idea of social distancing says, and we better be honest about that.
Aren't these questions that we should have been asking anyway, and maybe this situation has just sped up inevitable changes?
Maybe, but cities are great. Cities are amazing. Cities are work. They make stuff happen. You meet people. All sorts of things are taking place all over the place. You can have jobs. You can have fun. You can have restaurants, hopefully, again, music. Environmentally, cities can be pretty efficient as well. London is quite a green city and it can get greener. Sprawl over the countryside with suburban houses, lots of cars, spreading everybody out across the land is not a good, efficient way to live, and it's not good for the environment either. And in the end, that isn't good for human health. So no, cities work. London works. It's the most amazing thing in our country. It's the one bit of Britain that's really not just world class, but the envy of the world. Our city is, in some ways, the place the world meets and the world happens. We can't just give up on that and say, oh, well, we're all going to have to live at home and not go out anymore. We've got to find ways to get going. And the answer is to start it now, start it carefully, make it clear what the rules are, make sure people realise it's safe, manage the consequences, and gradually get back up to full speed. And we want back to London with a busy tube. We want Crossrail open next year. Just ironically, this week, they've just announced hours ago that they've finished the work in Crossrail. The tunnels are complete. The stations aren't all complete, but the tunnels are ready. Trains are being tested. This city is ready to go. We've got to get back to that and not just give up. But we do need some clarity, and it's a bit random at the moment. Find an old T-shirt, see what you can do on the tube. Good luck. Maybe work from home if you can. That's all right for a few more months at most. It's not the long-term future. But more cycling amongst the mix, that'll be good. I look forward to seeing you on your e-bike soon.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.